as this is the last video of this video series, the course name Power Electronics and Drives 19WT301. The last video is a chopper fed DC drive for four quadrant operation of a hoist load. Hoist, or it may be a traction, or it may be a lift load, a traction load, or a hoist load. Now let me see the circuit diagram and the operation of it. This is the circuit diagram for the four quadrant operation of a chopper. The left hand side, see here, the left hand side is the DC supply, which is plus and minus, and it consists of four transistor switches, which is marked as T1, T2, T3 and T4, and four anti-parallel diodes D1, D2, D3 and D4 for acting as a flywheeling path or a freewheeling diode. And in the center, the red color circle is the armature, and Vt is the terminal voltage across the armature. This is a DC shunt motor, whereas the field winding of the DC shunt motor is not shown here. The field winding is given an uncontrolled DC supply, whereas here a controlled DC supply is given to the armature, whereas this supply is DC. Therefore, DC to DC converter. A chopper is nothing but a DC to DC converter. You mean uncontrolled DC to controlled DC supply. It is a four quadrant operation. The right hand side, the x-axis is the torque and the y-axis is the speed omega. Quadrant 1 is forward motoring. Quadrant 2 is when the torque is reverses, it is forward braking. Quadrant 3 is reverse motoring, and the quadrant 4 is reverse braking. Now let me see the operations of four quadrant operation. The circuit is again shown in terms of switches. CH1, CH2, CH3 and CH4 is the switches, transistor switches. And this is the circuit diagram for the first quadrant operation. See here the quadrant number 1. For the first quadrant, the transistor Q1 and Q4 is turned on. Therefore, the direction of supply is mentioned in terms of blue color. From the positive through the transistor Q1, passes through the armature and return back through Q4 and reaches to the negative supply. Now the right hand side of the armature is positive and the left hand side of the armature is negative. Hence, the direction of current is from left to right, and the direction of voltage is right hand side is positive and the left hand side is negative. Therefore, it is first quadrant, since current and voltages are positive. It is mentioned as forward motoring mode. Any doubts in this direction of current and the terminals of the voltages? Next is your second quadrant, quadrant number 2, second quadrant. Here, see that the direction of current is mentioned in green. The diodes D1 and D4 is acting now as a freewheeling path. The energy stored in the armature is discharges through the green color, and the same the right hand side is the positive and the left is the negative, since the voltage polarity remains same, whereas the direction of current is from the armature to the source. Therefore, the direction of current is reverses, which means it is forward braking. the direction of current reverses, which means it is forward braking. Forward braking. This is the second quadrant operation of a chopper. And now let me see the third quadrant. This is the third quadrant operation. Here for the third quadrant operation, the transistor Q3 and Q2 is turned on. Transistor Q3 and Q2 is turned on, whereas the supply is again from the positive through the transistor Q3 to the armature and reverses to the Q2 and back to the supply in the negative direction. Now see here, and the direction of current is from right to left, and the voltage polarity, it is the right hand side is the positive and the left hand side is the negative. Since the polarity reverses and the direction of current is also reverses, it is the third quadrant operation. It is the third quadrant operation. Q3 and Q2 is turned on. Now let me see the fourth quadrant, quadrant number 4. See here the quadrant number 4. Here the direction of current is from the armature, from the positive of terminal of the armature, flows through the D3 to the supply, positive, and from the supply of negative, it is flows through the diode D2 to the negative terminal of the armature. Here the direction of current is from left to right, whereas the polarity, armature voltage polarity, is in the right, is the positive. Therefore the direction of current reverses, whereas the voltage remains same. The direction of voltage remains same. You mean the voltage is negative and the current is in a positive direction. Therefore it operates in the fourth quadrant. Now cumulative of the all the four quadrant operation. See here, for the first quadrant the switch CH1 and CH4 is turned on. For the second quadrant the switch CH2 and the diode 4 is turned on. For the third quadrant the switch CH3 and CH2 is turned on, whereas in the fourth quadrant the switch CH4 and diode 2 is turned on. In the first quadrant the voltage and the current is both are positive. In the third quadrant the voltage and the current both are negative, and the second quadrant the voltage is positive, and in the fourth quadrant the voltage is negative. Whereas this four quadrant can be mentioned here as forward motoring, quadrant 1, forward braking or generating in quadrant 2, reverse motoring and braking in the quadrant 3, and the generating mode is in the quadrant 4, generating counterclockwise, the 4. Quadrant 3 is motoring counterclockwise. Quadrant 2 is generating clockwise, and quadrant 1 is motoring clockwise. Similarly, the torque speed quadrant and the current voltage quadrant is also mentioned here. Thank you for patient listening. The operation of a 4 quadrant chopper fed DC drive. Thank you.